Hello everyone, welcome to our online class focused on interdisciplinary and empirical legal research. As much as we all love online lectures, I am going to keep this brief and hopefully get through this fairly quickly. So let's get started. Our agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about what it means to be interdisciplinary and empirical. We're going to talk about how those things relate to the practice of law and what the trends are as related to these subject areas. And then I'm going to point out a few databases, resources, and tips to think about as you move into practice with these research objectives in mind. So what is meant by interdisciplinary? We can see our definition at left, right? It involves two or more different subjects or areas of knowledge. We can see at right some examples. We've got an explicit mention of law next to ethics and justice, right? So that's just one example. We see a reference to science, technology, and society. Law could combine with those topic areas as well, right? So perhaps you're knowledgeable about this interdisciplinary study if you took the Law and Science Legal Research course with Professor Nye. But of course, there could be many areas or disciplines that intersect with the law. So again, our basic definition is just two or more. So that could be really any area or multiple areas that collide with the law and that you'd want to use to view the law in a new way. What is meant by empirical? So we see our definition again, right? Based on observable and verifiable data. So this is not theoretical, right? This is proven. So we have two types, quantitative as well as qualitative, right? So quantitative is focused on numbers, right? Looking at statistics, and those things are represented by way of numbers or figures, whereas qualitative are the types of research that include perhaps interviews or case studies, types of analyses or observations. So of course these types of research cannot be expressed in numbers, but it is important to note that empirical research can be both or either quantitative or qualitative. And that's not to also say there may be some that include both quantitative and qualitative data. So how do these disciplines relate to the law? So at left we see a list of disciplines that are more closely tied to the law. So we've got political science, economics, philosophy, sociology, psychology, right? Those are just a few examples. Now at right we see some areas of law that are most frequently referenced by the Journal of Empirical Legal Studies. So what does that mean? These are some of the areas of law where we're seeing more and more discussion of empirical research. Okay, so as you can see listed here, we're seeing more empirical research, whether qualitative data or quantitative data, discussed alongside the areas of civil justice, corporate, criminal, administrative, constitutional law, right? So again, this is not an exhaustive list, but here are some examples of where you're seeing this increased empirical discussion. So what's happening in legal research and education? This is really not just specific to the study of law. We're really seeing this across education more generally, but we are seeing more scholarship focused on interdisciplinary and empirical research. So again, that means that we're seeing subject areas evaluated through a new lens, whereas with law, they would have just been looked at from a traditional legal angle, but now we're adding another discipline or subject area that adds a new way of looking at this particular legal issue, right? So we're seeing increased scholarship, whether in the law or other subject areas. We're seeing more courses that are interdisciplinary or empirical, conferences, institutes at various universities. We just saw a reference to the Journal of Empirical Legal Studies, so we're seeing more of those interdisciplinary and empirically focused journals, scholarships tied to these types of research, and then concentrations, right? So we're seeing areas where two disciplines are combined, and sometimes that's hosted in a single department. Sometimes you're seeing it in multiple departments, right? If you're completing a law degree, but also completing a master's in public health through the health sciences department. That's just one example, right? So what about in practice? I don't want to read the entirety of this quote to you, but you can see that we're, in terms of where we're seeing empirical research play out in practice, we're seeing it discussed alongside civil and criminal questions, right? These empirical data, whether quantitative or qualitative, can be helpful for formulating a litigation strategy or developing standards to guide evidence and fact-finding. Another result of this is that judges' gatekeeping roles have expanded, right? It's because so now they're having to look at different types of empirical evidence and evaluate the efficacy of that data and its relation to the legal issue which they're evaluating, right? So legal analysis, it has a huge role in case law, still growing in legal education. We touched on that already, right? But just allows us a new way to look at legal study and legal practice. And again, saying this not only in scholarship, our law journals, but also in court opinions, right? So an increased discussion of empirical data within the courtroom, within case law, within the information that judges are now tasked with evaluating. Okay, that was quite brief, but I want to point out a few resources that you have access to. So this is a screenshot of what you'll see when you move into the database from the Law Library webpage. So you're looking at the catalog here. And as you can see, we're searching everything, right? If you could search just for law library materials, but instead you want to make sure to search for everything. So that includes all of the university materials, whether law specific, or it could have any of these at left or more, right? So it could be related to arts and sciences, education, health and medicine, etc. So let me show you quickly how to get here and run a search. Okay, so we're on the main library page here. So we're going to scroll down to get to the catalog. I always just move into advanced search. So you'll click advanced search. And now you're seeing your catalog search fields. So at top, you can see law library, and you can see law databases. You can also see university databases. So if you were to click there, you would find a list of all the databases that are offered through the Texas Tech University system, rather than those just specific to law, right? But if you want to run a search for across the entirety of the resources you have access to as a student, including those not only in the law school but through other schools and departments, you want to again click on everything to make sure you can search across. I'm just trying to think of an example. Health policy. Let's just go with health policy. That's pretty basic search. Okay, so now we're seeing some links to, we've got access to a journal that may not be provided through just the law school, right? So, and access to a journal of mental health policy and economics, also something that may not be provided just through the law school. So this is just a way to find additional sources that you could use in your research, right? I'm going to go back one page, actually. So if we click on subject at left, we can narrow by focus areas, right? So we could move into science or technology, health policy, etc. So that's another way to narrow into a specific area, and you can see the list is a lengthy list here, right? These are subject areas that are just related to health policy because that was our search query, right? So you can imagine how many other subject areas there may be depending on what your initial search is. So we also noted, apart from our catalog, you could click on law databases or university databases, right? So that's where we are here, looking at databases across the university. And I just wanted to quickly point out, you can see our databases by category here as well. So you've got law that stands by itself, right? But then you've got education, engineering, a whole host of other subject areas. So you may find additional relevant sources or articles there. Just something to take note. You can also get there from that university databases tab. I also want to point out just our Texas Tech University Libraries page. So you could find this by just Googling TTU libraries, right? And then you'll get to this page where you can use this one search, advanced search bar at top to look for resources. There's also a link to databases and journals, as well as a few other resources. But all of these will include not just law resources, but additional subject area resources as well. So again, something that you will maintain access to while you are still enrolled as a law student. Some additional statistics-focused databases. So we've got ProQuest and then Statista. They're both linked here. So let's just quickly look at how we might get there. So here I'm once again looking at our university databases, right? So I've clicked here and I can see all the databases throughout the Texas Tech University system. We could look for statistics at left, but we're not seeing a category listed as statistics. So instead you could just run a keyword search for statistics and then the database will show you some of those top resources for looking for statistical data. So there's one for Statista, Statistical Insight, there's a few others. Some are more specific to certain areas, healthcare administration, but let's take a look at these first couple of examples quickly. Well, I was hoping it would be quickly. Okay, so here's just an example of one site that you may find additional data. And then I'm going to go back to, we can look for different, search by different company, data, industry areas, jurisdiction, right? So this is just one platform resource that you may have access to. Our next one was Statistical Insight, so we can click there. And then this takes us to a subdatabase of ProQuest, right? So we've looked at ProQuest before. We looked at ProQuest Congressional, we looked at Regulatory Insight, and then we've also got their Statistical Insight platform, so we can search by topic, industry area. We can search for data from a particular agency or by topic. And then we've got a note here, only interested in table data, use advanced search. And then there's some instructions about how to better understand these statistics on this particular platform, ProQuest Statistical Insight. So that is yet another database that you may explore when looking for additional statistical data. These are some free resources. These are linked within the PowerPoint slides, so I won't go through them one by one. I'll let you do that on your own. But keep in mind these are some other additional places that you might find valuable statistical data. We've looked at USA.gov for a number of reasons in class, but note they have their statistics page within USA.gov. And then we've got data.gov, Gapminder, and then also Google's Public Data Explorer. So if you are looking for empirical data and practice, these may be some of the free resources that you might use in doing so. Okay, we've also talked about throughout the course of the semester the value of library or research guides, right? So we talked about simply Googling library guide or research guide, and then the topic area you're looking for. So this one you can see is a library guide focused on resources for non-legal and interdisciplinary research, and they've laid it out where they've got statistics as one, company profiles, medical information, right? So the layout's going to vary based on how these law librarians have laid out the guides, right? But so you may want to browse through them to find the type of guide you're looking for that's laid out in a way that's most helpful to you. But as you can see, this may be a good starting place for a guide to point you to potential relevant sources. And remember, you won't be able to link from the links on this site if you're not a member of that institution. However, you may have that access to that source separately, right? So you may see ProQuest Statistical Insight listed under the Statistics tab, and you won't be able to link from that link because you're not a student at Chicago Kent. However, you do have access to that source through Texas Tech, right? So you could just follow the Texas Tech catalog, and you would have already identified that as a relevant source, so you can go directly there via the catalog. Same thing in practice, right? You may or may not have access to some of the resources that are listed, but it's still helpful to know where you're going, where you can start. That is potentially helpful at the beginning of your research process. So again, we've talked about this over and over, and I reiterate this for a reason. It's something that I did not know about when I was in practice. It would have saved me a lot of time to just know what, some of the background information, what are the types of issues that you're looking at within a particular area, what are the resources that you should be aware of, because that impacts where you go, right? You can start with a library guide and know where to go, rather than just starting from zero, right? So, and again, you can find these on a number of different areas. This one is coming from Georgetown. Georgetown does a really excellent job with their research guides. This one's focused on statistics and empirical legal studies. So again, just another example. You type in library guide, research guide, statistics, empirical legal studies, quantitative legal studies, qualitative, etc. So here's yet another example on empirical legal research. This one's coming not from Chicago Kent, but from the University of Chicago, and it's linked here. You can see they've laid out theirs in a number of through a number of different areas and through a number of types of data. So they've got IP data, economic data, etc. And then they tell you, we talked about data.gov, right? They're also giving us, referencing us to other sources like the Harvard Dataverse. It says it's an open source web app, so that means you don't need any login information. So you could click this here regardless of whether or not you're a student of University of Chicago or Harvard, that for that matter. So again, some of these listed here may not be included on the Texas Tech catalog or the Texas Tech list of university databases. But if they're free resources, they can still be quite valuable to you, right? And you wouldn't know about them unless you had sought out a relevant research guide or library guide. So I hope this is something that I have sufficiently reiterated. Again, library guides, research guides, they are your friends. They can tell you where to go, and start you off at a really, at a great starting point. That wasn't super articulate, but allows you to start from a better starting point where you're saving yourself time, and you're more efficient, and thus saving money for your firm as well, right? Okay, so last couple of notes. Assignment 4 is available on Blackboard. I'm not going to read this aloud to you. You can see all of this in the Word document itself. Pretty straightforward, right? It's just like our government documents. Assignment is sort of subjective to what you want to talk about. So you're simply going to choose an area that you think would benefit from this expanded type of research, whether interdisciplinary or empirical or both, and expand on that, right? So in terms of the research plan, you can use the documentation that is uploaded for the final project. If you want to use something different, you can, but just note that if you want to use that documentation that's already been uploaded for the final project, that might be a good way for you to get some feedback on on your use of that particular research plan. If you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help if you have questions about using a particular research plan. Okay, so as I said, questions about the research plan, questions about assignment 4, questions about anything that we've talked about today, interdisciplinary, empirical, statistical, qualitative, quantitative, etc. Please let me know. Of course, this will apply in some areas of practice more than others, right? But it's something you should be aware of, depending on what area of practice you're moving into, right? You're probably going to encounter this more in health law, or I don't know, labor law. I mean, there are so many different areas that increased knowledge, having that empirical data could be helpful. And as we said, we're seeing that more and more in case law and being considered by judges as the law continues to grow and evolve and intersect with other areas and disciplines. Okay, I think that's all I've got. I hope this was helpful. Again, email me if you have questions. I will see you all next week, and thanks for your patience in allowing me to do this lecture recording for this class so I can be in Chicago. So thank you all. Again, let me know if you have questions. I will see you next week.